Welcome to the ThunderCast, your Marshall Athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hudnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast. You can follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod. We are absolutely, positively in the throes of football season now. Russ, we've got a game to recap. Big win over Stony Brook that we're going to talk about. And, of course, the first big out-of-conference test of the season is coming up later this week, too. And we're going to have another show previewing the game against the Virginia Tech Hokies. But, man, it was an awesome week to be in and around Herd Athletics. There's a lot going on. A lot of our teams that are in the fall season are in full swing, so we got some around the Herd to talk about, too. I'd like to remind everybody that the ThunderCast is proud members of the College Huddle Football Podcasting Network. College Podcasting Network. You can find them at thecollegehuddle.com. Make it really easy to listen to some podcasts from teams around the country, including those that will be playing the Herd. I imagine that the Virginia Tech podcast world will be lit up previewing the game with Marshall this week, especially after their loss against Vanderbilt to open the college football season. Russ, I say we get into this episode with who knows how many things. But first, give me a quick word from our sponsors at Leasure Oliver PLLC.
If you've been hurt in a wreck, call the law firm of Leasure Oliver PLLC. Find them at 304carwreck.com.
Well, since this is technically the first episode of the actual football season. We've talked a lot about a lot of things moving into and getting ready for and preparing for the season. And this past Saturday, we finally put cleats on the field. And some pads were popping, some passes were passing, some runs were running, and all that good stuff. But I got to be honest with you. I'm anxious. I'm curious. How many things are we going to talk about before we get into this Stony Brook recap?
You know what, KD? Usually it's this obscene number, right? But believe it or not, with everything back in the swing of things, we have a true 5 things every Herd fan needs to know this week. As always, brought to you by Ignite Link, the Tri-State's premier IT management team. Number 1, women's soccer coach Rafa Samoz gets his first career win as a head coach.
Yep, first of many, man. I'm really excited for him, really excited for this team. You know, we kept talking about the rebuild. Rough start to the season, weren't able to notch that first win right out of the gate, but we're able to finally get one in the left-hand column. And obviously you just kind of need that. You need to prove that, hey, man, this team can win a game. And now it's like, okay, this team can win multiple games. And can they go on a winning streak and all of these things. But huge congratulations to head coach Samoz getting that first career victory as the head coach at Marshall University. Got to be the first of many, many, many victories still to come.
Yeah, and look, we started off with a draw. Then we had 2 very close 1-0 losses. So real close to getting around that victory and everything. It's not like we've been blown out early in the season. But 4 matches in, he notches his first victory. We were looking for huge things here, not necessarily in that first year. We're looking at building a monster like Coach Grassy, who he come from that tree, doing the same way. Recruiting, building for the future, but getting number 1 out of the way. You're right. It's huge. Mm-hmm. Number 2, we're going to keep it right there with women's soccer. Julia Pissarro named an assistant coach for women's soccer. Comes to us from Brazil.
Yeah, so it's a couple of weeks in a row now. We've had some women's soccer news.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. It seems like there's I don't want to call it momentum, right? Because momentum really starts to happen once those wins start rolling in, right? And yeah, but you've got to have one before you can have two and that type of thing. But we talked about this with the last bit of coaching news. It just seems like there's a lot of well, I don't know. You can call it anything else. It is positive momentum. It's program building, right? It's another step in the ladder that you have to climb in order to be a conference contender, and then hopefully, and not so long from now, maybe a national contender, because we know that's absolutely possible in Huntington, West Virginia.
Mm-hmm. Looking at her timeline here, we're at least 6-7 years into her being an assistant coach of some sort, all down in Brazil. What I'm really intrigued by, we've already seen Coach Samo's building an international squad. Seems to me this is a huge pipeline down there in that area. Brazil is massive in soccer, massive in size, really. If you look at a globe or a map, you're going to see just how big Brazil is. But it is a way of life down there playing soccer. So you have to assume she has all the connections. It just looks like a no-brainer to pick up someone with that history to be here now on the sidelines for the Herd.
It just kind of feels like that thing where you go find yourself the position coach that has those deep South Florida ties, right? Because it's such a recruiting hotbed. Same kind of thing. It's just much farther away. You travel down to Brazil now because it's such a potential recruiting hotbed. You're right. It's a way of life down there, and it's a way of life really globally. And it's finally catching up in America, but I don't know. We'll probably be dominated by American football for a long, long time. But soccer is unbelievably popular. And especially over the course of the last probably 20 years, you've seen the explosion of popularity, both professional and collegiate in the United States. But still, if you want to get the best bang for your buck, so to speak, you're still going to have to go recruiting internationally. Because it's just been, at it for so long. And it's like you said, it's a way of life.
The opening tournament in volleyball, number 3 here, McKenna Melton and Bren Brown made the all-tournament team. That took place, over a few days here while we were gearing up for that first Marshall football game.
Yeah, Herd volleyball out of the gates, looking pretty good so far. I know we'll have more about them in around the Herd, but we've already seen some personal accolades on an of the week scale. They had a nice match at home the other day. It's like I love and earlier today I was just perusing Instagram, and there was a reel or some sort of video there on the Herd volleyball Instagram feed, and you get a taste. If you'll go find it, you'll get a taste of some of that energy that we talk about when you go to volleyball matches. But a great start. I think if you talk to Coach Ari, she was probably really disappointed with how last year went. She had high hopes. We talked to her leading into the season, and she felt like the floor for this program had been raised. And I know that they fell short of her expectations last year. So I think she feels a little bit better about where we are this year, replacing some great players, great players. But she did a great job hitting the recruiting trail. We've got some great players that return. Bren Brown's always a beast, and it was nice to get that couple of members of the Herd landing on the all tournament team, right out of the gate to start the season.
We're going to keep it right there. Number 4, Bren Brown, also named the Sun Belt Conference Setter of the Week.
I told you. And on some accomplishments on an of the week scale, and that's what I was talking about. I just didn't know if it would land here or it would land, later in the episode. But surprising no one, Bren Brown's been great for a number of years for Marshall, and in a conference where there are some really good volleyball schools. This is tough to do. We are, for all of us Herd fans that get tied up in, Herd football and Herd basketball and like, oh, this guy got robbed this week because he had a great job, did a great job, had a great game. I kind of feel that way a little bit about football, and I'll talk about that later on. But this just is not that surprising because Bren's been really good for a really long time. And she more than holds her own against the best of the best in the conference because she is one of the best in the conference. And an of the week out of the gate, just speaks to that.
And some of our viewers, some of our listeners might not be familiar with all these volleyball terms, but listen to this monster weekend that she had. It says the native of Toledo, Ohio, helped the Herd to a 2-1 weekend, sweeps over ETSU and Elon at the Wildcat Classic as she had 74 assists. That's 8.22% to go with 30 digs and was named to the all-tournament team. Registered her first double-double. Look, she's a double-double machine and has been her entire career of the season on Saturday against Davidson with 19 assists and 12 digs. Brown had 27 assists on Friday against ETSU and a season-high 28 in Marshall's final match of the weekend against Elon on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, so such an unbelievable weekend, right? Those kind of stats just kind of shoot off the page at you when you talk about 28, 19. But I'm here to tell you, you're gonna see stuff like that all year long from Bryn Brown.
Yeah,
And she's one of those players that if you have to, you're like, all right, I need you to point to one player and say this is your first team all conference player. We have potentially more than one. Let me tell you that right out of the gate. But if you have to say who's the best shot, if you're only getting one, you're probably going to more than likely point at Bryn Brown. That's just how good she is. So these big stats, these big weekends, series or whatever, shouldn't surprise the Herd fan that's just getting to follow Herd volleyball or just beginning to follow Herd volleyball. That's just how damn good she is, right?
Yeah, we had several different times that she made the 5 things before. I think at one point last season she was number 1 in the nation, I believe, in digs. It had to be one of the last 2 seasons, but she's been up there in the top 5 consistently in digs, just constantly. This stat that just like you said, they leap off the page.
They do.
All right. Finally, number 5, men's soccer is now ranked 7th after ascending to number 2 since we had recorded last. We went to number 2, went up to Xavier, got a loss, came back, blew the doors off of the team, Loyola, and we're back up to number 7 in the nation.
Yeah, kind of surprising. I guess they just ran into a buzzsaw there at Xavier. It just didn't go well. Two nothing loss is just very uncharacteristic to a team like Xavier. Marshall just couldn't put that one together. Weren't able to really, I don't know, bounce back. It didn't seem like they could just get anything going, and ultimately took the L in that one. But like you said, bounce back in a major way, and I want to save that one, talk about it in Around the Herd.
Sure.
But yeah, Herd's still a top 10 team, and I expect that they will not fall out of the top 10 at any point in the season, but will only manage to climb back up higher to that top spot, especially once you get into that Sun Belt Conference slate.
Yeah, and as you know, number 1 in the nation right now. Don't know if they're going to stay up there. It'd have to be a hell of a season for them to stay number 1 from start to finish, basically now. But it's West Virginia, and we face them last. And they're in the Sun Belt Conference. There are 4 in the top 10 or top 20 or something like that. But anyway, well represented here in the Sun Belt Conference. Again, the match with the Derby with WVU is going to be the final regular season game. It's going to be in Huntington. No matter what, it looks like soccer runs through nationally. It runs through West Virginia, but this year it looks like could run through Huntington that very last game of the season.
Yeah, you talk about that. It'd be a very special season, but we saw Marshall had that kind of season last year. They were number 1 for a large part of the year, and then we saw how it ended. But, it is what it is, and I don't want to rush through the season just to talk about that final game because, honestly, West Virginia is a great team. And as much as I don't like to root for them in any sport ever, at any time, at all, we're going to play a lot of really good teams before we get to West Virginia. And this is not one of those sports where their fans can do that, that same old tired little brother thing like, oh, this is your Super Bowl, because it's not. Because we're 2 of the top teams in the entire nation. This ain't nobody's Super Bowl, so to speak. This is just a matchup of two of the nation's best teams. Like that's something different. So we're going to have to face Kentucky. We're going to have to get through Central Florida. We're going to have to get through James Madison and some of these other uh, really good soccer teams in the Sun Belt before you can even think about West Virginia. But conversely, so do they. So if it sets up the way it is and everybody runs the table between here and there, then hell yeah, it's going to be one hell of an epic match. But for now, let's take it one match at a time because obviously the Herd is proved to themselves that they can be beaten by teams that they did not expect to lose to.
KD, that does it for 5 things every Herd fan needs to know this week. As always, brought to you by Ignite Link.
Speaking of Ignite Link, it was really good to see Jed, and it's always good to see him in person. I like that guy so much. He's such a cool dude, and I appreciate everything that he does for us, and everything that we're able to do, especially when it comes to ThunderCast Live, powered by Ignite Link, which of course we had going on this past Saturday in the C lot, previewing that game against Stony Brook. And man, oh man, I don't even know how to describe it. What a day that was. I didn't know this going in, but I didn't know that West Virginia had been under drought conditions for a while, and
oh yeah,
desperate need of rain. And geez, I'm really glad they picked game day for that rain to come rolling in, in like freaking gangbusters, by the way. But yeah, let's talk about Stony Brook. Let's talk about the C lot. Let's talk about the afternoon that was the home opener, because it was a good one. The Kentucky Mash Boys were out there cooking all kinds of killer food again. The lots were not as full as I would have hoped them to be, honestly, but they were still pretty full. Had a pretty good damn time out there. Always great to run into old friends, meet new friends, and see some family. My entire family was there this time, which is a rarity. My wife was with me, and both my sons, my daughter-in-law, and if folks tuned in to see ThunderCast Live powered by Ignite Link, they even got a glimpse at KJ, my grandson, who made his internet debut. So it was a good time, man. Let's talk about it.
It was. First things first, that food, that tailgate, everything was free. Those hundreds of people that stopped by throughout the hours. And that was thanks to 2 different sponsors. One is Landscaping by Hillcrest. They have signed on to sponsor every single tailgate we have this year. They said, do it up big. That's what they said. If you're going to do it big. And I said, we don't know any other way. Tom with Landscaping by Hillcrest, this is not his first time sponsoring our tailgates. They did the spring game. They did 3 games last year. He said, heck with it. I want to do all season long. We have actually had people that listen to our show so far has already said, love what they're doing. I want to use them for my landscaping needs. And that's been great to see. We also had Raleigh Court Mobile Home Park. This is their 2nd straight year doing that home opener. They said they always want to be involved in that home opener, that they have a tie with us and the event that goes on Friday night and everything. If you are in the Daniels, Shady Spring, Beckley area and need a place that you want to put a mobile home, they have empty lots right over there. They have something like 75 to 100 lots. Some have mobile homes already on them, so it's just turnkey. And then they have empty spaces. So keep them in mind. Show them some love if you're down in that area. Heck, some people like to get a spot down there just so it's closer to the gorge and closer to all the different things that they can do down there. So hit them up. Get with us if you need. Landscaping by Hillcrest. Go to landscapingbyhillcrest.com. With all that out of the way, the food by the Kentucky Mash Boys, Chris, Kyle, Brian, everyone that chipped in and helped, it gets better every year. Yeah. Emily Dye made the macaroni and cheese. I had every intent of making it this time, and we did not outsource it. She used my recipe. She used my ingredients. I just said, can you make this? And she said, absolutely, I want to help in any way. So she did that. So logistically, we could do more things that Saturday morning to get the tailgate ready. But just what an amazing afternoon.
Yeah, it was awesome. We had great weather for that part of it, and I loved seeing people come by. I'm never shy about walking the lots and I'll walk up to people and say, "You guys hungry? We got tons of food. Head on over there. You don't have to ask nobody. Just grab a plate and start eating." Like that's one of my favorite things to do is to direct people over to this massive spread of killer food that we have there for anybody to really walk up and grab. And I got to say a special shout out to the ROTC guys that were manning the parking lots and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When we rolled up to the C lot, I noticed early on that we didn't have any trash cans for the lot, that we had always had before. And so I rolled over and asked those guys, like, "Do you have any? Are there any extras? Can we wheel a couple over? And because we're going to need them." And a couple of phone calls, and bam, there were some cans appeared. So it's nice to know people that can make things happen. But those guys are awesome, and I told them repeatedly, please, guys, don't go hungry. Come over, as many times as you want, as often as you want, and get some food, get something to drink. Like, stay full, right? Don't be out here working on an empty belly. So many great people pitched in and helped. So many great people made this happen. Karen LeGrand, big spread of desserts once again.
That was my next thing that I was going to say after you threw it back to me. But since you already mentioned it, I'll just mention it now and turn it back to you. Karen every now and then will send a message and say, "What can I bring?" And I always say, "Nothing. Bring yourself. Bring an appetite and all that." And she always goes, "No." Goes above and beyond. But she used to message me like in the early days of, "Hey, anything for the tailgate and all that." She was like, "Do you guys need any tablecloths?" And I always said, "What for?" She said, "Oh, you guys," with not putting anything out. So, she just happened to put in something all decked out in Kelly green. I mean, it looked like something you'd see at the Greenbrier. It was tiered and all this different stuff with all these desserts, all these sides and stuff like that. It was just typical Karen and her friends going above and beyond to come over and tailgate and chip in as they could.
Yeah, it was great, man. We had people covered from main courses to side dishes to desserts and everything. It was really awesome. I loved being able to spend some time and meet. I always meet new people, no matter how many times I go to herd games and have, especially since we've been doing the ThunderCast. I always meet new people.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite freaking things to do. And of course, Jed hooked us up with ThunderCast Live, powered by Ignite Link. Once again, we went live for about an hour. Views on that show, Russ, I don't know if you went back and looked. They were pretty good.
Yeah, last time I looked was maybe early this morning or late last night, one of the two, and it was at 575. So we're pushing 600. And that's good for all those weren't live at one time trying to watch it. People went back and watched when they could. Some people were tailgating, missed the message, so they had to watch it after it had started. But a lot of people tuning in. I'm glad that we can do that. Jed makes it possible for us to do that. We're never going to look like college game day, but that's the entire point, right? We're all about the tailgate and the fun, and you never know who's going to happen by and beyond ThunderCast Live, powered by Ignite Link.
Yeah, that's true. And one of the cool things he's done this year, so folks, if you can't make it to a game for whatever reason, obviously we want you in Huntington, West Virginia for all those home games. But if something happens you can't, and you found yourself, well, I'm going to have to I'll just have to watch the live show. Jed has started interacting with the commenters live during the broadcast, which is really cool. So that's something that's a new wrinkle to the ThunderCast Live powered by Ignite Link shows. But look, let's get in and talk about the game, right?
Absolutely.
I don't know about you. I didn't have any trouble getting into the stadium for all the worrying and warnings about make extra time to get into the game. I had zero trouble getting in. It was not that long of a wait to get in. So we got right in, went right up to our seats, and bam, here comes the herd, right? We're playing Stony Brook, who was coming in as an 0-10 team from a year ago, still on a losing streak after the Herd really took it to them, Russ, 45-3 in this one, especially after the Herd started slow and then the Lightning came and pushed everybody out of the stadium. So they put up 45 points really in about 20, just a tinge over 24 minutes of time of possession. It was unbelievable, the offensive outpouring that happened after the rain delay. So let me get into some indicators here real quick. We'll talk about some bullet points, and then we'll talk about how it went for the Herd. Indicators. Total yards, 549 yards of offense for Marshall, just 252 for Stony Brook. Mentioned that time of possession, 24 minutes, 22 seconds for the Herd, 35 minutes, 38 seconds for Stony Brook. So the Herd did big-time damage in a little amount of time. First downs, almost a double-up affair for Marshall, 27 for the Herd, just 15 for Stony Brook. Third downs, Marshall went 5 of 11, so hovering around that 50% mark, 6 of 21 for Stony Brook. And then turnovers. Stony Brook had 1, Marshall had 0. So took care of the football. Only 1 penalty all day for Marshall as well. Could not believe how that went. Some bullet points. 3 quarterbacks played in this one for Marshall. 3 quarterbacks, 3 touchdown passes for Marshall. The first time since 1932, the great Steve Cotton pointed out that's happened, and that was against the season opener. That was the season opener against Louisville. That was a drubbing, like 66-0 or something. Holy moly. Here's the one I got to talk about, though. Air raid. I'm not sure I saw an air raid. Our buddy Luke Creasy coined a good term. He's calling it the air run, and I think I like that.
Let's do point counterpoint here, because I said this very thing on the post-game show. Obviously, you can't make them as much this year, if at all, this year. And I started doing those for anyone listening. We're doing them on Sundays just for logistics. It makes it so much easier after the game to do that. Get the tailgating put back up, drive it home, unload it, all that, not having to worry about doing a live call-in show for an hour and a half. So we did it on Sunday. And on Sunday, I talked about that very thing. It was 36 runs to 32 passes. If you have 2 that weren't draws, or you tucked it and ran, that would have made it 50-50 split. So it's real close. We said a minimum of 55% passing, probably more around 65 was where you and I thought it was going to be. But here's where I will say we still ran the air raid. The routes were drastically different, with the over the middles and with the fades to the end zone and all that. So you had much different routes. You had much different drop backs and everything. Totally different look than the RPO and the spread that we ran last year. Second, we had 10.1 yards or maybe it's 9.1. A conglomerate of 9.1 or 10, somewhere around there, but right around 10 yards per attempt that we had. Drastically different than last year. We also had 5 passing touchdowns, the first time that we have had that since Grant Wells, November 14th, 2020, against Middle Tennessee State. It has not happened in years that we've had 5 touchdown passes through the air. We came really close to having 2 more. One was an amazing defensive play where a guy batted the ball down in the end zone on a narrow fade, and the other on the other end, beautifully thrown ball. Guy has it, but as he hits the ground, making the diving touchdown, it comes out right there. So we nearly had 7 passing touchdowns, or 6 if one of those we had a touchdown after one of those plays. It was a lot through the air. The only reason that there was a higher percentage of runs for this than we expected was, 1, it helped get Stone Earl into the flow of the game early on, and 2, it was there for the taking. So we went ahead and did it. We did a lot of design draws, and we did a lot of tuck and runs because we had 7 yards right in front of us. You needed to go ahead and do it. So I am not worried that we didn't have 55, 65% passing plays in here. I still think it was a modified air raid. Those percentages, as the year will go on, will be higher up there. Just my thoughts.
Well, and another thing is we know that we were not going to know what this offense was after one game.
Right.
We're not going to know what this offense is after 6 games, right? It's just you need a big sampling of data to ultimately figure out what this offense is, and we probably won't be able to accurately dissect it until the end of the season. Now, if you start coming out and you're running the ball 70 times and passing 15 times, you're going to know pretty quickly that this is not an air raid. So, but when somebody sees, a 32 pass to 36 run ratio, they're going to go, well, that ain't air raid, right? And that's kind of what we were talking about. But I'm with you. If it's there, 7 yards is there, you're not going to not take it.
Right.
Like that's dumb. You take that, right? So, but I like the term air run. I do like that. I think Luke was pretty creative in that. I'm absolutely going to take zero credit for that because that was his moniker, and I think it's fitting, because you did see some downfield passing routes, some stretch the field passing routes, but Marshall still did not abandon that run game because we told folks over and over there's too many good runners in that room. So you just can't leave it behind. You can't shelf that. So I like the air run, and I'm okay if it actually morphs into that air run type thing because you get that downfield passing concept with a balanced attack. And I think that's what a lot of fans were getting pissed with last year is that it was bubble screens and runs rather than the downfield passes and runs.
Yeah.
So I would actually be cool with a 50-50 or really close to it split if you're running those type of concepts downfield.
I'll tell you what I'm fine with is winning. So I don't
45
care.
points?
Yeah. I don't care if it's a 70-30 and the 30 is the air raid, as long as that means we're moving the ball down the field and putting up 549 yards. It just really opened everything up. But we also had to run a little bit because they were in a 3-3-5 out of the gate. And once we opened it up with the run, Katie barred the door. Stone Earl hits 8 out of 9, going into the first half, start of the second half. And Braxton comes in, and he's just feasting. And then Pennington comes in, and he feasts in his one drive. So I was fine with it.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I'm not trying to be a hater at all. I really ain't. Really am not. But I just kind of expected we would see something a little bit more pass heavy. But again, if you're going to be able to get 7 yards when you need it, every time you need it, you take it.
That's right. Yeah.
The third main bullet point for me was this weird lightning delay that we'd had. And that was really, I'm glad that happened early on because that seemed to give the herd an opportunity to have some what the hell are we doing here conversations because they went in back-to-back punts to start the game. Then the lightning delay comes out, and then it was 45 freaking points after that. And I don't know what the time of possession was for those first 2 drives, but still, it was 2 drives, 2 punts. So even if it was a couple of minutes, you're talking about 45 points in maybe 20 to 21 minutes of time of possession.
Well, without looking it up, I can tell you the first half was only 9 minutes for us. 21 minutes to 9 minutes is time of the possession, and we were up 17-0 going into half. That third possession, the 80-yard run, that was 11 seconds or something like that. Later, we had a 31-second drive that ended in a touchdown. So we scored quickly in those. But you're right, man. It was in and out those first couple. It was 3 and out. Both on third down. The first was a drop. It looked like it wasn't on the receiver. It wasn't on the quarterback. It was kind of on both. That it was just a little bit behind the wide receiver, which allowed the defensive back to get his hand in there enough to make it to where we didn't get a first down because he was plenty far past the line of the first down marker. So, you're talking about a couple of inches with passes here and there from Stone Earl. We might not have had that lull in the first couple of drives.
It was just I don't know. It was not the best case scenario, obviously, because you don't want to come out and start punting because that's what fans are like. Oh, okay,
right.
So many people are quick to judge, and you're like, oh, okay, here we go. This is not what we thought we were going to see. But at the end of it all, you go back and I was sitting with my cousin up in the stands, and I was like, I'm really not trying to be mean here, but does this not feel like the most ho-hum 45 points? You know what I mean? Because it was just like another touchdown, And before you know it, you had 45 points. And I didn't feel like, I don't know, I didn't feel like I should have seen 45. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was like I was almost coming too easy. You know what I mean? Towards the end of the game, and I thought, what the okay. The other thing I've got to talk about, two things still on this lightning delay. It's the first time that I can remember, maybe ever, that I was asked to evacuate the stadium for a lightning delay. I mean, we've sat through some torrential downpours, and I don't recall ever having to vacate the Joan. And I think that got to be a point of contention amongst some fans. And I want to take just a second and clear that up because initially it was clear the stadium and everybody was underneath in the concourse, and then I was down there about 10 minutes and then security started shooing everybody out of the stadium. They wanted everybody out into the lots. Well, at that point, I think a bunch of people just said, screw this and went home. And I don't know why. You had a whole game still ahead of you, right? We went out, stood under the tents in the tailgate for a little bit and, ate some more food and then went back into the game. But you didn't have to. It's like that they let you back in. All you had to do was go back through security, and it was really easy the second time. It was like, come right on in. They weren't looking at tickets or nothing, and it was weird. It's like if you didn't have a ticket to the game, and then they would have never known. You could have came right in after the lightning delay. They never would have known. So it was just an unfortunate situation. I hate that some fans got turned off of that, but you can't blame Marshall for weather. That's not their fault,
Anyone watching or listening can correct me, and I said the same thing on the post game on Sunday. Is I remember one game that we had to leave for lightning previously, and I'm almost certain at the time I was in the upper deck of the end zone where our season seats were, and I went down and that we actually had to leave and go on the outside of the stadium, that you couldn't be on the concourse. So someone that's watching can correct me. I'm thinking 2011 through 2013, somewhere in that range, and can't remember the game that it was, but I am most certain that they said, no, you can't be in the stadium, even the concourse. Second thing that I'm going to say, I didn't hear this, but someone said that as soon as they were telling fans that they had to leave, they said you have to exit the stadium, not the seats, not to go down below, that you actually had to leave and go out the gates so you could come back in. I didn't hear that. We went down. We were like you. We were under the concourse 10, 15 minutes, and then the security came by and said, can't be here. You got to go outside. And a lot of people weren't listening to them, man. So they had to go by. They went by 3 or 4 times and were like, guys, seriously, you cannot be in here. You actually have to leave. You can't be under the concourse. Yeah. So we did at that point, and I actually went back and got in my truck. I had some end of the month work that I had to have in before midnight. So I just chose to do it right there in the dry, watching you guys tailgate right across the street. But yeah, I'm with you, man. You did not have to leave and drive home. I understand a couple people, if they were, 3 blocks away, they had to walk through that downpour and everything to get to their vehicle, couldn't find a tailgate. But I'll talk a little bit more about that when we do the grades for everything.
Yeah. The last thing, let me ask you this. Do you think that game would have been against UCF in 2012? Because I was not in that game. I was not at that game. And my brother-in-law was getting married that day. And I was watching it on TV, and it was rainy, nasty, lightning game. So
it could have been. I've been to some games there, and I've got photos of it where, I might as well look like I'd been swimming. I'm soaked. But this was a game that there was lightning as well. I've sat there through rain, but this was lightning, and they had to delay it for a little while. And it seems like they may have even called the game early or something.
Then it would have been that game, I bet. Because I remember that happening, and I was just not at that one. But anyway, last thing for me was it was 25,032 announced at that game. I know the lightning delay had something to do with that. Still, I'm not sure that there were 25,000 people in that stadium at its peak. So Herd fans, that might be tickets sold and everybody there. I get that, but whatever. I think Herd fans need to do a little bit better job of turning out because this is a season opener.
Mhm.
right? This was a lot of hype around this team. Yeah, it's Stony Brook. Yeah, it was considered a bad FCS team. I don't care. I go to tailgate and see the herd,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what I wanted to get my eyes on the first inclination of the uh, air raid offense and see what this defense was all about. And I came away honestly. This is not being a homer. I came away with a lot of smiles, particularly on defense and some of these playmakers that were portal guys that we knew nothing about and how they would react or how they would respond or play in a herd uniform, how they actually played. There's reason to turn out.
With the attendance, I always remind our viewers and listeners, when you're in there and you're trying to get an eyeball view of everyone that's there, keep in mind that a couple of thousand are up in the skybox and you can't see them. So you're sitting here saying, well, that doesn't look like there's that many people here. A couple of them you can't see. And I heard a lot of different people on social media, as well as out in the lots after the game, as well as seeing it on message boards, that they were still trying to make their way from their tailgates, had just kind of gotten in to the concourse area, trying to make their way to the seats when the lightning delay hit. So up front, we might have been down about $3,000 of people trying either getting up to the skybox suites and being in the concourse or trying to get in the gates. So I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, but it is always tickets sold is how we go
Yeah.
about the attendance.
Yeah, I would just say, like, for example, the student section looked a little sparse, and that was disappointing because I would have expected that to be really full first game of the season. But,
I
I get
actually
it.
liked how the student section looked, especially late in the game. They stayed through halftime, and there was a lot more over there than I thought after an hour and 34-minute delay. So I was actually happy with how many was there.
All right, so let's talk about what actually happened in this game. We got a lot of stats to cover. We got a lot of players to talk about, so let's get into it.
Yeah.
Quarterback one started out for the herd with Stone Earl. Did not end up being the leading passer for Marshall, but still, we're going to talk about him chronologically. He goes 10 of 16 for 97 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions on the day. Also chipped in 8 carries for another 55 yards of rushing. Then Braylon Braxton came in the second half, went 7 for 11 for 141 yards, also threw 2 touchdown passes, no interceptions, added 4 carries for another 18 yards. And then Cole Pennington, you mentioned, got into the game late, 4 of 5 for Cole, 52 yards, 1 touchdown, his first career touchdown pass for Marshall, added just 1 carry for 4 yards rushing. Not bad for a trio of quarterbacks, where we had a lot of questions coming in. Who would be number one? Who would be number two? Who's going to start this, that, and the other? Really good day from the guys in the quarterback room. No turnovers, 5 touchdown passes, and nearly about 65-ish rush yards for everybody, 75 rush yards. A.J. Turner, the leading rusher for Marshall, 8 carries for 119 yards and a touchdown. Had that 80-yarder up the gut to kick off the scoring for the herd as I was actually walking back to my seat. I didn't see it, but damn, I heard it when the crowd started cheering as I was trying to work my way up to the bleachers. Christian Fitzpatrick leads the way for Marshall in receptions and yards. 4 receptions for 97 yards, 24.3-yard average, and a touchdown with a long of 67 yards. Russ, I got to say, it would probably be a good idea for defenders to guard Christian Fitzpatrick and not leave him basically wide open.
Yeah, it was an intriguing coverage option that they went with, leaving no one over there.
Well, yeah, that's probably not the guy you want to bring on a corner blitz, is leaving open the 6'4" outside receiver.
Yeah.
Elijah Metcalf had a phenomenal day. I mean, phenomenal in multiple phases, but from a receiving standpoint, 3 receptions for 50 yards, 16.7-yard average, 2 touchdowns, and a long of 28. This herd offense racked up 290 receiving yards. 4 receivers caught TD passes. Here's an interesting one, though. No tight ends caught a pass in the game. Thought that to be kind of wild, considering how deep this tight end room is. 259 rush yards as a team. 6 runners, that's quarterbacks and running backs, averaged 4 yards per carry or more in this game. This was just a great all-around performance for the Herd offense in a season opener against an FCS opponent. What do you got real quick about this Herd offense?
It looked good. Like we said, the first two series, and then really other than that 80-yard run, I did make it back to my seat for that. I watched this game twice on replay, and we just did a hell of a job blocking. And as soon as Turner got past the line of scrimmage, I mean, he was gone. He was untouched. But we did a lot well with these receivers, getting them into space, putting them in a position to where they could go up and make plays, and that's exactly what they did. Other than those first 3 out of 4 drives, Herd looked really, really good, but we had 3 and outs in the first 4 drives, and then that one play by Turner. So other than that 80-yard run, it was a bad start.
There, yeah.
But like I said, there was just a couple of things here and there. Stone Earl just looked a little bit off, a few inches this way, that way, giving the receivers chance to come back and make a play. We might have been looking at a much better start.
Yeah, I know. And ultimately, again, 45 points, you can't get mad at that.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to win you a hell of a lot of football games.
549 yards, that's going to win a lot. One thing that I want to say, too, about Fitzpatrick, we are, of course, joking that they left him unattended. The safety just did not wheel back over and cover on that corner blitz. But it also helped that Fitzpatrick seemed to be the first option in that play, because Braxton was already looking in his direction. As soon as he saw it, Fitzpatrick immediately held his hand up. They just hit him in stride, and he was gone because no safety rotated over.
Yeah, speaking of that, though, I did notice, and I wasn't the only one that noticed, this was kind of a conversation amongst the group of fans that I was around. It seems like the Herd quarterbacks, specifically Stone Earl, once he keyed on his primary receiver, he stayed locked on that guy. And that's not something that you're going to be able to get away with too many other defenses especially that's not going to work in Blacksburg. That's not going to work in Columbus, and it's not going to win games for you against App State or any of the contenders in the Sun Belt Conference. So it's just this will be the progression, the development of our quarterbacks to see if they can. He did go through progressions a couple of times, made some good throws later in the game towards the end of his time on the field. But early on, man, he would lock onto that number one guy and just stare him down the whole way. So I know that's all things that get flushed out in the course of feeling each other out and learning this offense, but something that a lot of fans took note of.
Well, I was going to say, I kind of thought the same thing watching live, that early he did that. I did confirm that watching on the rewatches, and it seemed to be those first 4 series that he had. And after that, and Braxton and Pennington, they all were looking at second, even third options and everything. So as the game went on, just like you mentioned, they did start to do that. And I was pleased at how we had 3 very good quarterback games there. If you take away the early, I think Stone Earl started out something like 2-7 or something like that. And it just didn't look like he was in sync at all. Then he's 8 for 19. It was 3 really good games by each of them to make you feel comfortable about what we have been hearing, that, hey, they have all been kind of neck and neck. A lot of people were worried that meant, well, none of them are any good. They all look to be pretty good, even though it was against Stony Brook. You still have to make the throws, and they were making some very good throws, especially those touchdown passes on the fades.
Yep, I did see some good throws from all 3 guys, really. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not just saying that. There were some legitimately really nice balls that were thrown. So let's flip over to the defense now. Mike Green leads the way for the Herd. Not surprisingly, we expected Mike to have a big game, and he did. He delivered 9 total tackles, 2 solo, 1.5 tackles for loss, and 1.5 sacks for Big Mike. Jaden Yates, how about this? How about the first-time starter? Well, he started some games played in some games last year, but starting at linebacker this year 9 total tackles, 2 solo, 1 pass defended for young Jaden. Landon Watson, another great game, 8 total tackles, 3 of those solo. Then you got Jacoby Henderson, A.G. McGee, Jabari Ishmael, Chris Thomas, all with 6 tackles apiece, and then varying numbers of solo tackles and impact plays sprinkled in amongst those guys. Speaking of those impact plays for this Herd defense, 5 total tackles for losses, 4 sacks, 6 passes defended, and they get an interception. Sacks come by, of course, Mike Green, Jabari Ishmael, Ian Foster, Dylan Davis gets the first one of the year for the Herd, and Amir Foster gets one. Your interception comes by Jordan Reagan. Reese Verhoff goes 1 of 2 for hits one from 45, missed one from 42. Elijah Metcalf mentioned had a great game. 4 punt returns for 41 total yards with a 10.3 average and a long of 16. Ian Foster had 1 kick return that went for 51 yards. What a beauty. I thought he was going to break that one loose, but he just got taken down at the very end. And then Alec Clark, 4 punts on the day, 168 yards total, 42-yard average, 2 inside the 20 with a long of 54. Let me sprinkle back there, and you can talk to me about this Herd defense.
Herd defense was dominant, but they were also bringing the absolute pain on these hits, man. I'm talking like just out of nowhere, you just be like, oh, I'm talking just laying people out, and I love that. It was an aggressive, swarming defense. Amongst I think I'm getting these numbers right because I don't have them in front of me. Maybe you do, 105 team tackles, and I think it was 78 were assisted. So it was just everybody swarming to the ball. Love to see it. Also love that Chris Thomas, in the absence of Legs and Gibson that weren't there, not just in starting, but the entire game. Gibson was on the sideline in a jersey, and then I did not see Legs. Chris Thomas, with his 6'7" plus the wingspan that's even bigger, had 2 pass deflections, batted balls. And if we see a couple of those at Ohio State or at Virginia Tech, that may turn into an interception for us. That was one of the early things that Vanderbilt got drones, was a batted ball. Second series of the game, I believe, helped set Vanderbilt up to go up to 10-0. So really love the play by everybody on defense.
Yeah, me too. And I don't know that a lot of fans noticed that Taqua's Legs and Gibby were not in the game. And that's 2 massive pieces in your interior defensive line that were not on the field. And still, this defensive line showed how dominant they can be. Yeah. And how about those linebackers, man? Answering a lot of questions. Now, as many questions as we asked, these guys, and Landon Watson is a beast. He was freaking everywhere. Jaden Yates played unbelievably well. And just down from us was Hall of Famer Max Yates. I don't think he sat the entire game. I mean, he was on his feet the entire game. Yeah. I wouldn't expect anything less from a guy as intense as Max Yates, right? Yeah. You don't have time to sit down. There's a football game being played, man. Right. You know what I mean? So it was a really good effort all the way around. These DBs played really well. They did give up some early 3rd down conversions, but hey, settled in, started making some plays, came down with 1 late in the game. This is really good. And I'm not going to get too high because, again, this was Stony Brook. This is not Virginia Tech. This is going to be a 180 between tests from week to week here coming up. But still, great way to start out the season. 45-3. Herd's 1-0. I mean, goodness gracious. Let's move into some grades.
Yeah, I've got the grades here, and I've also got both of our keys to victory. If you want to do those after the grades, we can roll through those real quick. But I'm going to start off with the offense on grades. I had them as an A-, putting up 549 yards, putting up 6 touchdowns and a field goal. Field goals, special teams, but 6 touchdowns, 5 through the air, 549 yards total. The only ding that I'm giving them instead of an A or an A+ is because they had that slow start 3 out of the first 4 series.
Yeah, that's not bad, right? I would expect that to be right in line. I'm right in line with that too. Had Marshall gone down on the first possession or one of the first 2 possessions and put points on the board, this would probably be an A performance. But anytime you get to nitpick like that, you did a lot of shit right. That's
Yeah.
just all there is to it. You did a lot right. So let's talk about those quarterbacks. What do you got for those quarterbacks?
Quarterbacks, man, I have to go with an A, not an A minus, not an A plus. And again, it was that start, for Stone Earl that was a little bit sluggish. But 3 of them coming in and doing something that no one has done for us since 1932. That was great. They threw some absolute dimes. They looked poised in the pocket. I'm telling you, the progression, which I had him as the breakout at quarterback, the progression that Cole Pennington has had in the touch on his ball, the arm strength that he showed, the decision making, looking at different receivers. I just could not have been high enough on all 3 of these guys as a unit. I'm going with an A.
Yeah, it was an A, and I don't care. No turnovers for any of these guys. They took care of the football. They nearly combined for 300 yards passing as a committee. I'll take that. 5 touchdown passes. I will freaking take that every single week. This is about as A as they can get without being an A plus, and that's it. That's all there is to it. What about this Herd defense in week 1?
Her defense, I've got it as an A as well. About the only thing that you could say is, man, you gave up a third down here, you gave up a third down there. But I mean, come on, they held the team to 3 points and no touchdowns, kept them out of the end zone. They were flying all over the field. It's about as close to an A plus as you're going to get from me.
Well, I'll tell you why I'm with you, and I'll give them an A. And it is, you gave up no points, right? That's special teams points. That's not on the defense. You did not give up a touchdown. Here's where I'm at with it. I had some questions, and I wondered, what would we look like? Would we be able to effectively put, some linebackers out there that were serviceable? I think those questions were answered and put to bed because the combo of Yates and Watson alone are way more than the word serviceable. I think these guys fit right freaking in there, man.
And
And
J.C.
again,
Anderson too.
right, but I didn't have questions about him, right? I didn't have
Sure.
questions.
Okay, gotcha.
So, and then we're talking about that you didn't have legs and you didn't have Gibson. So how much more responsibility fell on that second level than normally would? And these guys responded, man. I mean, and some other guys I got to talk about. Ian Foster played great for me on defense. I mean, I thought he looked really good. Not to mention just the special teams things as well, but he played really good on defense. Jabari Ishmael looked really good opposite Mike Green. The wrinkle of moving Mike Green inside a few times throughout the game. Okay, I don't know. I don't know what I was seeing there. I did not expect to see that, but I thought, hey, that's something new. That's an interesting little thing. Look, I'm not getting overly hype about this defense. I came away with some of my questions answered, and that's primarily what I was hoping to see. It was an A performance all the way around on this Herd defense. How about special teams?
Special teams I have as an A plus. You've got a missed field goal, but it was from 44. You said 45 and 42. That's what they listed these as. But when I went in my head, plus on the rewatches, you're talking about 46 and 44 was where they were actually from. The leg was good on both of them. It wasn't a distance thing. He even elevated his kicks a lot more. Veerhoff did. They used to be lower line drive kicks on those long distance, which made it susceptible to blocks in the past. But he had plenty of leg, plenty of height. It just hooked right outside on seemed to be like the last little bit because it was heading right down the middle and then it hooked. That's the only thing that you can nitpick is missing a 44-yarder that had nothing to do with any kind of being close. You missed that. It was kind of like, well, let's kick it just so we can get some practice at these. We had a 51-yard return by Ian Foster in his only touch of the game. They kicked off one time and for us to return it, and that's what we got was 51 yards. We had Metcalf getting way more yards in this game than we did the entire last season in punt returning. I'll say that again. Metcalf got more yards in this game than we did last season in punt returns.
Yeah.
That was great. We punted out of the 4 times, 42 average. We punted inside the 20 on 2 of those. One of them was at the 1 yard line.
Yep.
Ian Foster, again, came down with that. It was just a terrific game. Most important, and this is for the offense, this is for the defense, but it's also for the special teams. Count them, one. And it was a holding call on the tight end, 1 penalty for 10 yards. We had another one that was waved off, and that was an accidental running into the kicker. And really, that was the kicker putting his foot out there on the punter, putting his foot out there a little bit more, watching it on the replay. The guy did not take an angle. He took the angle perpendicular that you should take right at the ball, just happened to catch his extended foot, and that was a running into 5 yards, waved it off. Excellent job by everybody to keep those. There was no turnovers. There were no significant anything that did any damage. It was just top to bottom great.
Right, and that's always what you're talking about with special teams is you did your job, and generally you do your job, you're going to get a good grade.
Yeah,
you're not asking more of somebody because those special team blunders, they can really kill you.
Yeah.
And we didn't see that this game. Everybody did their job. Anytime you can down one, inside the one, or at the one, that's always going to get the crowd excited. And this one was no different. Again, Ian Foster, what a great all-around game on defense and special teams. It did not go unnoticed, man. A lot of us up in the stands there in my circle of fans were talking about how well of a game he had. And as along with Metcalf, both receiving and punt returning, it was great all the way around. What do you got for these coaches?
Coaches, I have an A. I really don't know what could have put it to an A+. I liked getting all 3 quarterbacks in there to get them some time and experience. We could have kept 1 quarterback in the whole game and won easily. We could have put 2 in the whole game and won easily. We didn't. We put 3 in. We had a lot of different looks along the defensive front, like you said, putting Mike Green in the interior at sometimes and bumping out. I think it was Thomas went to the outside. We got a lot of different defensive backs in. We had 3 different runners, and we ran with all 3 quarterbacks. We had just a really good called game. The only thing that could have blown the doors off of is, again, those first 3 out of 4 drives that were 3 and out. But it wasn't like they were bad play calls. It's just they didn't get the first downs.
Yeah. Coaches had a really good, solid game. They had a good game plan, and it worked, right? And doing the little things like getting Cole into the game so that you energize the crowd late. I saw him warming up on the sidelines, and I was sitting there next to my daughter-in-law, and I said, they're getting ready to put Cole Pennington in at quarterback, and you listen to what this crowd does.
Yeah.
And, of course, he's probably the most celebrated third-string quarterback in the country, bar none right now, And it was good to see him get in. I would have loved to have seen Ja'Kai Long get into the game. He just ran out of clock. If Earl plays maybe 1 less possession and Braxton 1 less possession and Cole, gets 1 more, and maybe there's an extra one at the end of the game to get Long into the game. That would have been nice, right? Because this is the time to do it. But I get it. Definitely an A effort for the coaches. I would personally, selfishly, you put 50 on the board, you get that plus beside your A. But I'll take 45 and win.
You also have to talk about the lack of penalties here with the coaches, because nothing says discipline and playing within yourselves as barely having a holding penalty is your only real blunder. That to me is great coaching as well. To your point on the breakdown of the series that the quarterbacks got, Stone Earl was in for the first 9. Braxton was in for only 3. And then Pennington was in for only 1. So out of the 13, Stone Earl saw 9 of them. If he saw a couple less, then Braxton gets in early and Pennington maybe gets in earlier. You may have seen Long get that final drive instead of Pennington.
Yeah, would have been nice. It just would have been cool to see that. How about the fans, man?
The fans I've got for a B+, and here's the reason why. Yes, we should have had a lot more people there. And I'm talking about early. I think that I'm of the thing that we should have 30,000 there at every game. I would like to get to that point. But I'm not going to ding people that chose to leave after an hour and a half, even though I stayed. I didn't miss a snap. I'm not calling myself a super fan. I'm just saying I get it why some people left, after that amount of time. Here's where I'm going to ding some people. We is on the home side. Marshall is on the away side. I saw that backwards all the time. I also heard in the chairbacks around me, people trying to do both sides. That's not how it works. We is on one side, Marshall's on the other. I did like that we had some people trying to get it started, but they came over and were doing it the wrong way. They were doing it backwards, trying to get the pointing to the other side to do the we are and then having us say Marshall. And I just wanted to say, look, man, that's not how it works. The fans, for the most part, they get a really good grade here. I'm just dinging us for some things that we really, really need to get back to. And that's knowing when to be loud is on third down and then shutting up when we have the ball. Being loud and doing the we are and Marshall chant, but doing it correctly, and not letting it dwindle out after it doesn't even get started because people want to sit there. If you have been there for 4 some hours, get up and have some energy. You stayed there that long just to sit on your hands. No, man, get loud. And that's why I feel like I didn't say it earlier. You said it was kind of 45 points of ho-hum. I feel like there was not enough energy there to make it feel like that was 45 points. It's like we just took it for granted.
Yeah, I will say this. It was the energy that the players had on the field was not matched fully by the fans in the stands. And that sucks because these guys prepared and practiced and they fought and scrapped to get that depth chart spot and then they came out and put 45 points up on the board, which is what everybody under the sun has been asking for a number of years. That's what I want to see, by golly. I'll go back when I start seeing that. Well, here it is. I get it. Yeah, it's Stony Brook, but you can't keep moving the goalpost on me. You can't keep saying, well, I'll go back when it's 45 points, not against Stony Brook.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Yeah. But go to the game, be loud. I had a great time. Of course, I can't help it that, when the pregame intro's going on, I get chill bumps. I'm always going to get that. That's just because I love, herd football. I love that. And I'm going to be loud and I'm going to have energy that I can't contain and probably look a little foolish sometimes, but I don't care. It's like dance like nobody's looking, right? So I cheer like nobody's looking. And fans can be the fan they want to be, but you could at least match the energy that's on the field.
Here's the final thing I'll say about the fans. I saw a lot of this on social media and everything in the days after the game that they did not know about where you needed to enter for the security screening, or they didn't even know that was a thing and that you couldn't come back out after halftime, or come back out and then go back in without another ticket. The only thing I'm going to tell you about that is the university has a dedicated website to tell you all that stuff. They put out, I can't tell you how many different things. We put it out. Paul Swan talked about it. Luke Creasy talked about it. WSAZ had a feature on it. Yeah. It's everywhere that you want to look. Every message board, social media, everything. It was talked about ad nauseum. And you're on these same things, almost like a woe is me of saying, well, I didn't know that you couldn't go through gate B. It was said, I don't know how many times, that you go through gate A or gate C. I went through gate C for the start of the game, and it was ridiculously long. And there were 2 different lines for that because there were 2 different gates at gate C. And I thought, man, it's going to take 25 minutes to get through. It was less than 5. It was a long line. But you don't have to take anything out of your pockets. If you're not carrying a bag, you just walked right through, And the only thing that slowed us down was people trying to walk through with beers or drinks or something that hadn't been sealed, because you can now take water in if it's sealed and it's in a clear container, that they had to be told, sorry, you're going to have to chug that or throw it away before you can walk through. And that held the line up. So it's not on the security. The only thing holding the line up was some fans at times. So don't tell me that Marshall needs to do a better job of putting it out when they spend a freaking month telling you almost daily, and there's still a website up that they link to all the time. It's been on every radio show, every TV show. It's been on our show. It's been all over social media. That's on you guys.
Yeah, it is. By now, Marshall's got a clear bag policy. We all know now that they have a no re-entry policy. You're going to have to go through additional security, and it's only a handful of places that you can go through that. At that point, it's on you to comply with that stuff. And if you don't, then you can't be like, well, I didn't know. No, you knew. You tried to get away with it, and it didn't work. So it is what it is. Do better next time. Show out a little bit better for Western Michigan here in a couple of weeks, and honor that 2014 Conference USA Championship team. It ought to be a great time. Overall, what do you got for this one, Russ?
Overall, is an A+. That tailgate was crazy. The game, getting to see 45 points and giving up only 3. The negative, the only thing that you can come up with is that rain, that delay. But I tell you, in a weird way, that allowed some people to go back and tailgate some more, and can't even really be mad at that. A+ overall. What a weekend.
You nullified the no re-entry policy for one more game because of the rain. So it wasn't all bad. All right, let's move in real fast. Let's do it. Who's your offensive MVP for this one?
My offensive MVP is Elijah Metcalf. He just made things happen every time he got the ball in his hands, and I'm going with him. I had originally said that it would be a wide receiver. I didn't know who it would be, that they'd get 2 touchdowns. I put that to be Tyshawn Chapman in our pregame show. It didn't end up being that. It ended up being Metcalf, but 2 touchdowns from a wide receiver. I'm going Elijah Metcalf.
Yeah, even though this does fall a little bit on special teams as well, I'm going Elijah Metcalf, offensive MVP as well. He was just all over the place, man. What a great pickup for the Herd coming over from Middle Tennessee State, which means, this is something that we get taken advantage of, is where bigger programs take our great players sometimes. And I'm not saying that we're a bigger program than Middle Tennessee. I'm just saying great players are everywhere, right? And he saw an opportunity to come to Marshall and play in a air raid, air run, whatever you want to call it, offense. And he really flourished in that. He really, really did. And for all the folks that'll say, well, Christian Fitzpatrick led the team in receiving. Yeah, he did. He most certainly did. But he was also the benefactor of a 67-yard touchdown that was uncovered, essentially. So if that pass goes to Metcalf instead of going to Fitzpatrick, you're talking to, it's the same thing. So Metcalf, to me, made more plays in more situations. Plus, he found the end zone twice. Great Herd debut for Elijah Metcalf. Russ, who's your defensive guy?
Mike Green, 9, which was a career high, tackles. He had 1.5 sacks. He was back there, I think, 2 tackles for loss. And he also, or maybe it's 2.5. And then he also had 2 or 3 quarterback hurries. And he just seemed to be that guy. He wasn't out there a full game. He missed several series. And he still led the team from the defensive end position in total tackles. So give me Mike Green. What a debut for the year.
Give me Mike the Freak Green, but a special shout out to Landon Watson and Jaden Yates, man.
Yeah,
what
very
great
good game
efforts by those guys. I mean, you're talking about 26 total tackles between Yates, Watson, and Mike Green. Phenomenal game from those 3 guys individually. Landon Watson, I'm really feeling good about. He had a great debut. Well, a great first game of the season for the Herd. But Mike Green did it for me. He showed exactly what we had expected. He showed exactly what we had been talking about. And I think a lot of Sunbelt fans went, ooh, maybe they weren't full of shit. Maybe this guy is pretty good. And that leads me to talk about what I wanted to talk about in the 5 things. I think he got robbed for Sunbelt Defensive Player of the Week. I think he had a phenomenal game. And I saw who won it. Nothing against, that particular player, but I think Green had an overall better stat line and was more impactful in the game. I think maybe that the fact that we were playing Stony Brook was held against Mike a little bit, but plenty of time for some of the weeks for Mike Green. He will undoubtedly have a couple. If he goes out and puts up the exact same stat line this weekend against Virginia Tech, he wins that damn award. We both know it.
Give me the of the year and keep your of the weeks. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so finally, who you got for your special teams MVP?
It's Ian Foster, man. One touch for 51 yards. He had the punt down at the 1.
Yep.
And every time, if you go back and watch this game on ESPN Plus, every time that there's a punt, he is down there, one of the first two people, often the first person down there, just really flies down the field. He's a weapon on special teams, and I can't wait to see what he does all year long.
I agree. For the newfound leg strength of Reese Verhoff, which is great to see. Alec Clark putting a over 40-plus yard punt return or punt average. It's Ian Foster. Down and one on the 1, big 51-yard kick return for touchdown. And you're right, or not for touchdown, big 51-yard kick return. He was down there on every single punt coverage. Great player for the Herd. Also plays a pretty mean DB, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, man. He had he wrapped up. It was an outlet pass and got the guy for a 2-yard loss. I mean, that's how bumping right on the guy he was. He's going to turn into a special player as a redshirt freshman, already putting up games like this.
Yep, he's going to be a hell of a player. He started off great all-around game for the Herd in all 3 phases and on the sidelines. Could use a little bit of improvement up in the stands from the fans, but overall it was an A-plus weekend for me. Russ, we've got Virginia Tech and Blacksburg next weekend, or coming up this weekend, but for right now, let's go around the Herd.
Yes, we're going to start off with cross country. They had their first meet, and it was delayed a little bit because of the heat, but same day there on Friday. The Herd women won the 2024 Thundering Herd Invitational with a dominant 20 points, winning over the next closest team finisher, who scored 47 points. Senior Kylie Maston won the individual title with a time of 18:05. Junior Hannah Weiler finished second. Freshman Ellie Hosefluke and Destiny Berryman rounding out the top 5. So 4 of the top 5 for the women. We had an additional 3 that made the top 15. The men had a good showing as well. Says just 2 of the same top 7 who scored at the 2023 Thundering Herd Invitational. They did that on Friday. Squad was led by sophomore Garrett Ferguson with a top 5 finish and a time of 15:32. Freshman Justin Lipscomb also finished in the top 10 4 seconds later to get 8th. Team finished second with 55 points. So great showing by both overall. You got anything on cross country before I move on?
I mean, well, just real quick, it's a big time win for the Herd cross country women. Mean that literally and figuratively, because Kylie Maston crosses first. 4 of the 5 top 5 are Herd women. Gotta love it, man. The Herd Invitational and the Herd holds strong at home. What a great way to start out the season. What's next?
Volleyball, we swept ETSU at Davidson, like I said, and then we played Davidson and actually got swept by them on their home court, and then we came back and swept Elon. So 2 sweeps. We go 2-1 down there. We talked about Brim Brown getting setter of the week, and we talked about her and McKenna Melton both making the all-tournament team. Very good start to the season on the road, going 2-1. Would have loved to have seen us get a set or 2 against Davidson, but it's hard when you're on somebody else's home turf, home field, home pool, or in this case, home court.
Yeah, it's still. We got off into a good start there, and you could put a couple on the all-tournament team. You get an of the week out of it, outside of getting swept in one of the matches. All right, so what if you take 1 set? The only thing you're doing is taking away the word sweep. You're still going to lose that particular match, but it is what it is. 2-1 on the weekend. I think you'll take that most of the time.
Yeah.
So let's build some momentum heading into this conference slate, because honest to God, man, it's just time for this Herd volleyball team to kind of rise up the ladder a little bit in the Sun Belt. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Great start, but we got to keep it rolling.
We are going this weekend for the Eastern Michigan tournament in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Starting Friday at 4 p.m., we'll be taking on Oakland. And then Saturday at 11 a.m., we'll be taking on George Washington. And then 3 p.m., Eastern Michigan themselves. So another 3 matches set up for this weekend. Moving on next, women's soccer. They had gone up to Harvard and lost 1-0, and then came down and got that goal late by Angel Fowler to where Rafa Samos, as we mentioned, got his first ever win as a head coach. It was a great, great, great game to see that happen. They won 1-0 against Belmont. They are facing Ohio at Athens, and that is tomorrow at 4 p.m. Thursday, in case you're watching this on Thursday. And then this Sunday, they will be at Indiana State at home, 1 p.m.
Nice. Yeah, get 1 out of the way. Let's move to 2. Let's get to 3. I mean, I don't want to say it over and over again, but now we've proven we can win matches. Then now it's about winning more matches.
All right, and we are finishing up with men's soccer. Of course, we said they lost 2-0 at Xavier. We've never won at Xavier. And then we demolished Loyola 6-1 on Monday at home to get back in the swing of things. We have a full weekend of that coming up. Let's see who they are going to be playing. High Point is their next game. I think the next 2 or 3 games are going to be at the Vet. So get there and watch those. We'll have all of that on our social media.
Yeah, tickets for all those matches, of course, at home. I saw we got tagged in a tweet from our buddy Tom Bragg, who was actually out tailgating the other day. So the tailgate scene is growing down at the Vet. So, you can have a little bit of fun between football games if you want to go get your tailgate fixed. And keep your eyes glued to the ThunderCast Facebook page and the Twitter page for ticket giveaways.
KD, the battery is about to die here, so I'm going to take us out, and we're going to end this episode. So I'll just say, whether you see us at the Joan, whether you see us at the Cam, whether you see us down at Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, where you'll see me down there, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd. Come back in a couple days. We'll have your Virginia Tech football preview. We'll see you next week. Later.